Welcome to the Compendium Podcast hosted by Leadership Books. In just a moment, our host, Joseph Baker, will be joining us, along with a very special guest. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you to Joseph. He's a podcaster, event producer, writer, speaker, and audience builder. His passion is to help authors, speakers, and entrepreneurs build their audiences to monetize their leadership. Won't you please welcome our host, Joseph Baker.
Well, welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Compendium Podcast. I am here today with Dr. John Jackson. Dr. John Jackson is the 6th president of William Jessup University, located 20 miles outside of Sacramento. He has his Ph.D. from the University of California. This university, being William Jessup, has tripled in size in the past 6 years and now has a full suite of undergraduate, graduate, and online degree programs and is regionally and nationally ranked. He is also an author and speaker about leadership, transformation, and spiritual growth. John is married to Pam, and they have 5 children, 3 son-in-laws. It says son-in-laws, so I'm going to make sure you wrote that, I'm sure. 3 grandchildren and a big dog named Max. Dr. John Jackson, welcome to the Compendium Podcast.
Joseph, thanks so much. And I just already love both the name of the podcast and the fact that you have a heart for just what's happening in our culture. So it's a privilege.
Absolutely. It's an honor to speak with you today. Even as we were getting to know each other pre-podcast, we have some things in common. We both lived in Northern California. I'm very familiar with William Jessup. My sister graduated summa cum laude several years ago. So I've been on campus. I love that school. I have many friends that have graduated from that school. But sort of give us an update from your perspective. How are things going? Let's start with William Jessup, and then let's go into you. What are you up to these days?
Well, thank you, Joseph. William Jessup University is doing well. We believe that we're thriving, that God is doing some good work here. But I will tell you this, COVID was no joke. And I don't know about you, but I did not plan for COVID. So we kind of reached peak enrollment in the fall of 2020. That was actually in the middle of COVID. Jessup was fortunate. We were able to stay open. We did kind of a hybrid model, some face-to-face, some remote. But the after effects of COVID, Joseph, are still in our economy. So we're down a couple hundred, maybe about 10% from where we were. We got a little over 1,650 students, just under 1,700. And but we do have a full suite of undergraduate, graduate, and online. And as we think about that, what we're really trying to do, this is our mission. In partnership with the church, we educate transformational leaders for the glory of God. And when I'm teasing with somebody, I'll sometimes say, Joseph, that I'm addicted to transformation. And that is just the ability to see lives change, to see people go after what they're made for and discover their purpose and their value. And we're doing that at Jessup. So things are well. We actually are starting a nursing school in January, and it looks like in the next year or so, we'll be starting 2 doctoral degrees, one in education and one in psychology. So if you think about learning and growing, and you think about mental health, those are 2 huge needs. And then you think about medical, the healthcare. So I think that's an illustration. We're starting a school of nursing. That's all about healthcare. Education is the whole learning and growing. And then psychology is the mental health arena. We're trying to be right in the center of culture. Rather than running away from culture, we're trying to be right in the center of culture and have a message of hope, a message of joy, a message of possibilities for the future. And we do that all as a part of our faith journey.
That is great. That is great. And tell us a little bit about, as you've been leading this organization, what has that meant for you personally, and what are you working on these days?
So in my sort of bio background, I was a pastor for many, many years. I still love the church. I sometimes make it a Dr. Seuss rhyme. I love the church, big and small, loud and soft, steeple and stained glass, warehouse, high, low. I love the church when people gather together. So I'm a pastor at heart. A lot of times people at Jessup say, well, we think you're a pretty good president, but you're really a pastor. And I say, thank you. That's what I want to be. So here's what it's done for me. One of the distinctives of Jessup is that we have about 900 churches that we're in relationship, and those 900 churches really help us to be connected to what's going on in people's lives. So I would say this: it's sharpened, Joseph. Being involved in higher ed has sharpened my commitment to the family, the church, and this might be a surprising one, and to the marketplace.
Mm.
I really believe a school like ours is most effective when we're integrated with the regional marketplace. It matters to me what's happening in industry. It matters to me what's happening in economic development. I have a real passion for making things grow economically, and because I think that lifts everything in culture. So at Jessup, we're committed to family, to church, and then to the marketplace.
That is really good. And if I could just add a personal testimony to that, being familiar with William Jessup, being familiar with some of the churches, and especially in the Rocklin, Roseville, and greater area from there, I have always got a sense of that there's definitely a connection between the local churches and William Jessup. I've seen just in my own sphere of life, I've seen worship leaders and pastors and ministry leaders rise up out of William Jessup, get planted in local churches. I've seen and witnessed college students who are very involved in their local church while they're a student. And then I've had, like I've said, friends and family who have graduated. I have a great friend, James O'Brien, who now works for the Department of Defense, just becoming a high-level leader. And he attributes a lot of his early success to his education, his involvement with William Jessup. He was a leader in that realm. He helped run the chapel services, and very strong Christian guy. And he's serving in a place like the Department of Justice, right, which needs Christians, right, to be in that place. He's a senior elder at his church, Sungrove Church in Elk Grove.
Sungrove Church, that's a great term. And I remember,
Yes.
Joseph, and I'd say you're encouraging my heart already today. But I'll say this: one of the things, Joseph, that I'm concerned about is people of faith sometimes divide life into sacred and secular, and I think that's a total deception. The fact that your friend James is involved in the Department of Justice. Wouldn't we all say we want good people? We want people who love God and want to serve society to be involved in the Department of Justice, to be in your local school, to be in the grocery store. I mean, we want people of faith, people of goodwill to be throughout the culture. So for me, I'm really committed to seeing us raise up strong men and women of faith who are going after their faith, but they don't divide life in sacred and secular. They're going to be everyday, in our language, we say everyday followers of Jesus. And we're just committed to that. And sadly, sometimes, Joseph, higher ed gets to the place where we're on our own little island and we sort of don't care what's happening. Even if we say we're, a faith-based school, we don't care what's happening in the church or other ministries. And we're working hard at Jessup not to be like that. We care what happens in the churches and in the culture.
Very good. Very good perspective. I want to talk a little bit about at least one of your books. I know you have several that you've written. Some of the lists that I have here, we have one that's titled The Right Choice, Choosing a College and Why It Matters, 30 Days to Healthier Relationships, Leveraging Your Communication Style, Leveraging Your Leadership Style, God Size Your Church, Finding Your Place in God's Plan, Pastorpreneur, and then also High Impact Church Planting. So you've definitely covered the gamut, again, crossing over from, you have this ministry and marketplace and kind of everything in between. If you had to highlight, what's a book that stands out to you right now, something that you think our audience might appreciate? Tell us a little bit about at least one of your books.
Yeah, I think I want to drill down a little deeper, if we could, into The Right Choice, simply because you'd expect me as a college president to do that. But before we do it, I'll say every book I've ever written, I like theory, but for me, I'm an applied knowledge guy. Like, again, I enjoy theory. I read history, I read theory, but I want to know what makes a difference in a personal life, what makes a difference in a family, in an organization, that sort of thing. So every book I've ever written, Pastorpreneur, was about unleashing entrepreneurial gifts in reaching the community, being creative, and having entrepreneurs unleash their gifts in the church and not just use it in the marketplace. But The Right Choice, Joseph, was all about this. People ask me all the time, how do I choose a college for my kid to go to? How do I choose a career? Maybe I don't even want to go to college. What's a career? And I'll just give you 3 quick words: dreams, desires, and details. And that's part of that particular book. Just focusing on, first of all, discover the dream that's inside your heart. And I don't know about you, Joseph, you don't have to say your age, but I'm 61. And sometimes I still am in the process of discovering dreams that are in my heart. So it's not like you do that once in a junior high or high school or college class and then you're done. But there is a sense at which, if as parents and as loving adults, we can help young people discover what makes your heart beat fast, what makes you want to sing, what makes you want to dance, what makes you want to, yell in a good way. discovering your dreams helps determine the kind of school you should go to, the kind of preparation. And then desires, sometimes people say, gosh, I grew up in the city. I really want to experience the country. Or the exact opposite. I grew up in the country. I really want to experience the city. Sometimes they went to a small high school and they want to be part of a big college. Sometimes they went to a really big high school and they want to be part of a small, intimate community. I think those desires are key. And then the details, it's a hard word, Joseph, but the truth is college costs money. Trade school costs money. And what's interesting is if you come from a really poor economic background, there's a lot of resources available for your trade or tech school or college of your choice.
Yes.
If you're really well-to-do, like higher economic, there's a lot of options because you could just write the check. I'm being crass, but it's the truth. Sure. It's that huge middle ground, Joseph, that's really hard. If your family has some economic resources, but not enough to just write a check, you really need to study hard. And I would just say, if you're a sophomore in high school or so, start talking with your family if you haven't already, and just thinking about what's the future. Is it college? Is it trade school, tech school? Is it a some people call it DIY, do it yourself? And so what this book, The Right Choice, tries to do is just say, let me just take you on that journey. I'm a dreamer. I'm going to help you with the details. I'm going to help you figure out those desires. And I wasn't trying to get anybody to come to Jessup. I think during the whole book, I mentioned Jessup one time. It's just it's just a thing to help people. And I think there's kind of a vehicle there, Joseph, for any decision we make. Any decision we make is a vortex of factors, a convergence of factors.
Yes, that's great. That's great. Here's a question I'd like to pose to you, because there is a wide range of thought nowadays regarding what is the true value of college, like today, right? Not historically, but what about today? What about that person who's like you said, a sophomore or junior in high school, and they're thinking, okay, do I want to be an entrepreneur and start a business? Do I want to go to trade school? Do I want to, there's a variety of things you can do. So we've heard, and it seems to be more and more popular now, there's that guy on YouTube who's saying, don't go to college, don't waste your money, just start a business and then you'll be rich by the time you're 30. Give us the opposite argument from your standpoint, being the president of a university. What are the benefits, the real life benefits for attending college today?
Yeah. So it's a great thing, and I'm going to do that, but I want to do my first 30 seconds in my answer and say this. I don't think everybody needs to go to four-year college. I know that probably makes me a bad college president, but honestly, I don't think that. I think that it might be that your pathway is best served in your spiritual life and in your family, that you don't go to college. You go immediately into a trade and immediately into a discipline. I do think that all of us need to become great at what we do. We all need to figure out what it is that our passion is and go after that.
Yes.
Whatever that is. And it may or may not involve college. But let me tell you what the value of college is. It's not the economics. All the studies show that college graduates make $1 million more over the course of their life. Will that always be true? Will that be true the next 20 years? I can't promise that, but that's what all the studies show. It's not economics. The true value of college is this, Joseph. It's number one, you get to drill a super deep well in who you are and who you are related to the flow of human history and who you are related to knowledge and who you are related to community. So let me unpack that a little bit. The whole goal of college, to be honest, is not to know stuff. It's to know yourself. The more you study in college, the more you deeply root in understanding all this knowledge, not just math, history, science, English, that kind of stuff. That's all good. But the more you study those things, the more you get a greater awareness of who you are in relationship to history. Like, again, Joseph, without going too far off task, we are so ignorant of what happened before. We think we're the coolest, hippest people around. But I want you to think about what it was like to live in 1920 before the Great Depression. What was it like to live in the 1800s before the Industrial Revolution? What was it? So when we start thinking about that, we go like, whoa, actually, we may not be the coolest, hippest people who ever lived on the planet.
Or even the smartest. We just have we have smartphones with access to information, but that doesn't mean that we're smart.
Oh, well, and I'm going to hold up my smartphone. Wouldn't you say this? Sometimes our access to information is actually a paralyzing agent. We have so much information that we don't know how to weigh what's good information, what's bad information. So as we get to unpack what's the real value, college gives you a greater value of yourself, equips you with the tools to be a lifelong learner. Joseph, I've seen various statistics, but I think this is one that makes me most nervous. 1/3 of all the jobs that will exist 20 years from now exist today. If that's the truth, I can't predict the future, but if the futurists who are saying that, if that's the truth, that means 2/3 of the jobs that are going to exist 20 years from now do not exist for today. So here's what I promise you. College will not train you for everything you're going to face in your career. I'm 61. I've had maybe 5 major jobs over the course of my life. And every experience I had taught me and helped me to be in the role I'm in now. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't learn new things. College helps you learn about yourself, helps you learn to be a lifelong learner. And then the third thing I'd say in our kind of setting, why would you go to a faith-based school? Why would you go to a school like Jessup that's intentionally Christian? Is we help you to live an integrated life. We do not want you to live a compartmentalized life. You're not a business guy or gal. You're not an educational person. You're not a government leader. That what you do is not who you are. You are not the sum total of your expertise or of your activities. There's something deep inside that is the personhood of you. So helps you learn more about yourself, helps you learn more about the culture, the world in which we live in, gives you tools for lifelong learning. And in a faith-based setting, it helps you learn your ultimate right spiritual life and not live a compartmentalized life. We help you live an integrated, we call it faith-based integration. We integrate every subject. You're not going to study a single subject at Jessup where we don't talk about God, the Bible, Jesus, the church, the world. Those are all going to be integrated in every subject.
That's great. That's great. And what would you say, what are you most excited about personally when it comes to yourself as an author, as a leader, as a president? What are you most excited about?
Yeah. Well, I'll use a biblical reference and then I'll springboard from that. What the enemy intended for evil, the Lord redeemed for good. I think it's so easy, Joseph, to look at our culture right now and just go on a long, downward, depressive trajectory. But actually, I'm really excited. I think we're in a disruptive world full of disequilibrium. And rather than that causing me to live in fear, rather than that making me say, gosh, there's no future, I'm really in a place of great hope. There's a Bible verse that says the kingdom of God is righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. Well, I think we're in an atmosphere where everything's shaky. Maybe you remember that story in the Bible where Jesus was in the boat with the disciples and there was this storm that came up and Jesus was asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all kind of read it now and go like, well, they should have known that. Well, I don't know. If I'm in a boat and the storm's coming up, I'm going to be freaking out.
Sure.
So the disciples were freaking out and Jesus was sleeping in the boat. But in hindsight, since they knew Jesus was in the boat, they shouldn't have been freaking out. So this is what I'd say to us. I'm excited about the fact that we have disequilibrium and storms, but Jesus is in the boat. And so I'm not living in fear. I'm living in faith. I'm not living in ignorance. I know the storms going around us, but I actually think, we're in actually a great season, Joseph. I think we're going to see amazing inventions. I'll tell you a good thing about COVID. I don't know specific answers yet, but I'm willing to bet that during COVID, a lot of new inventions were made. I think a lot of people went to their garage and invented stuff. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of new businesses, entrepreneurship got thought up in people's minds. People had disruption and chaos. Instead of seeing all that as negative, I'm actually going to say COVID was a revealer and it was an accelerator. And I think part of what it accelerated is entrepreneurial, innovative, creative strategies for the future. And rather than bemoaning my hands going, oh, what are we going to do? I'm going to say, I'm going to look around the corner. What's the next new exciting thing that's coming out of the chaos?
Yes.
So, maybe I just have the gift of positivity, but I don't think it's that. I think I just have faith that we can navigate these storms.
Yes. And you're seeing the picture clearly, but you're choosing to see it from a positive angle. And I think that's important because so many people are fixated on the negative. And that infiltrates the church. It infiltrates pastors. Pastors have had a hard time through COVID. I was in California during that time when it first hit, and almost every church, 99% shut down. Right. There was a 1% that didn't shut down, and they had to go through legal battles, and it's just a mess. It was an absolute mess.
California was probably the worst state in the nation to be a church, to be a religious institution. And California was pretty fierce. They ended up losing all that stuff in the Supreme Court. The state did.
Yes.
But if you're a pastor of a church, whichever decision you made, it was rocky.
It was. And so, yeah, the opportunity moving forward is for people to see, okay, things aren't going to be how they were. And for believers, I got to be honest, I don't enjoy the disruption, but maybe we needed it a little bit, in all honesty, because we've been very comfortable for the last several decades, and we might have become a little bit complacent.
Joseph, I think that's a great insight. I'll just maybe leave your listeners with this. John 15 in the Bible, it talks about a vine branches can't bear fruit unless it's connected to the vine. And then it says, if there's a branch that doesn't bear fruit, it's going to be cut off. But if there's a branch that bears fruit, it's going to be pruned, which means cut. So wait a minute, I'm going to be cut either way. But why is that second branch cut? It's so it can bear more fruit. And then one chapter later in John 16, we're told to bear fruit that remains. I think, Joseph, you're spot on. We're in this disruptive season. Maybe we needed to be woken up a little bit. Maybe we needed to say, we're pretty comfortable in a lot of areas, and now we've got a lot of discomfort. Maybe that I don't like it. I don't want it. I want it easy.
Sure.
But maybe that disruption awakened some things in us.
Yes, absolutely. So for our viewers and listeners who would like to connect with you, or at least find you online and find out more about what you do, where would we go to do that?
I'm going to give you two places. One is the institution. So if you want to go to Jessup, jessup.edu, jessup.edu, jessup.edu. Find all kinds of information about the school. If you want to go to learn about me personally, about the books, drjohnjackson.com, drjohnjackson.com. So drjohnjackson.com.
Excellent. Well, Dr. John Jackson, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. I know that you're a busy man. You're staying active these days with everything you have going on. So thank you for taking the time to add value to our listeners and viewers today. Be sure to follow Dr. John Jackson via his website. Also check out William Jessup University. And thank you again for being with us. And we will catch you all in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us for today's broadcast. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And be sure to visit us online at leadershipbooks.store. There you'll find the works of some of the finest thought leaders today. And be sure to tune in here each week to gain even deeper insights from one of those leaders on the Compendium Podcast.